Hi everyone, I'm Ann Madden. I'm a physical therapist and the founder of Proximity Telehealth. And this is the beginning of your class on diastasis recti or diastasis recti. Those are two ways you may have heard it pronounced. The other thing you may see is an abbreviation DRA, that's the same thing. And then abdominal separation is the way people will describe it. So those are three different ways we're all talking about the same thing. So I drew a picture here for you today. You may have seen a picture that's similar to this before, but this is such a basic and simple explanation of a diastasis that I'm going to start here. And as we go further in the class, I'm going to explain to you why I think that these pictures are a bit of a misrepresentation of what's happening because they simplify it too much. So let's start here with what the average, we're talking about the average person. So this is your abdominal muscles, your rectus abdominis. So we're talking about right here in your body. So from your, basically your bra line down to your pubic bone is where those muscles sit. So the linea alba is this center portion, which is right here in the picture. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about a diastasis. We're talking about the integrity and also the width of this piece of tissue. So this is a connective tissue. It's not a muscle. It's more like a tendon. So the connective tissue that would attach a muscle to a bone, but this attaches muscle to muscle. So it's a flexible piece of tissue that can be stretched and moved depending on what forces are placed on it. So this is what we're talking about for an average or somebody who does not have a diastasis. We're looking at, we want those muscles to be not very far apart, and we want their tissue to be tense in the middle. So that's what I'm going to say the average person who does not have a diastasis looks like. Now there are a couple different places that you can have a diastasis. You can have it above your belly button. You can have it right at your belly button. You can have it below your belly button, or you can have a global pattern. You can have it everywhere, that it's just all of those abdominals being separated. So this picture here is showing that we've got good integrity coming down in the middle there, and then we start to see our separation here. So see how the width is going to be much thicker here than it is here. Okay, so that we would consider a below the belly button diastasis. Now this picture up here, and I drew these to exaggerate so that you just see what I'm talking about here. So see how thick that would be compared to what we're talking about here. We're looking at, we want a strong, close, and resilient linea alba. So this is just a basic description of what it is that we're looking for. We're looking for the integrity of that tissue in the middle, and we're looking that it keeps everything close together. Now, one thing I do want to make sure that you know is that with a diastasis or an abdominal separation, we have not torn your muscle. That is something that people think when you say an abdominal separation, they think that you actually mean that one of these little muscles has separated, and that's not what we're talking about. Okay, your muscles have not torn. They, in their average position, if you look here, are already separate muscles. Okay, they sit in their own little pockets, and then they separate. The distance between them separates, not the single muscle doesn't separate in half. I just wanted to make sure that was very clear because that's a question that I do get, and so people think that they've had an actual muscle tear, and that's not true. So we're really focusing on this piece of tissue right here. Okay, so I hope that was a good explanation. As our class continues, we're going to talk about, so this is what is a diastasis, how do you get one, how do you test for one, and what are a couple things that you can do about your diastasis quickly to help you on the road to recovery. All right, everyone, so we're continuing on with our diastasis class, and this portion we're going to talk about anatomy. It is important that you know what is going on in that abdominal area and what all influences that piece of tissue called the linea alba that we mentioned earlier. So in each one of these pictures, The blue line represents the linea alba, and then each of these muscles pulls on the linea alba. So I'm going to explain each group of muscles here so you can understand and understand why I said that the other picture that was just like this was too simple. Because we don't just have these two abdominals separated and they're the only thing that is involved in the problem. There are a ton of different factors that can be pulling on that linea alba. So that's one reason I think that those pictures are way too simple, and that we need to explain it to people that it's not just that six-pack or rectus abdominis that's affecting this. It's being affected by many different things. And that is why you can't just give one exercise to somebody to fix their diastasis, right? Because if your problem was coming from here or coming from here, then there are different concerns involved and we need to give you different exercises, okay? So I'm gonna start here. So you have 4 layers of abdominals that contribute to that linea alba. So what I mean by that is they all insert on that linea alba. So the place where they end is that piece of tissue. So they are all attached and pulling on that piece of tissue depending on how you're moving and standing. So the first one here is your transversus abdominis. Again, these are simplified pictures, but in general, you just need to know what the muscles do and how they affect the linea alba. So these are horizontal fibers. They are right here in your body, okay? So as you tighten that abdominal region, that's what you're feeling. It feels like your corset of muscles. It wraps all the way around and it will squeeze to provide that support there. This is the deepest layer of muscles. On top of that is your internal obliques. So the best way to show these, we have external and internal obliques. So we go by their name. Internal oblique is internal or inside of the external oblique. So usually the easiest way to show is the external obliques are as if you're putting your hands in your pocket, and the internal obliques are in the perpendicular direction. So this is my internal oblique is here, and my external oblique is here on top. Okay, so you can see that they both still attach to that center line, that linea alba, but the way that they are facing means that they pull in a different direction, depending on which muscle is turned on. So I wanted to show you here on top. So it's our transversus abdominis first, then our internal obliques are on top. So they're the next layer. Okay, then on top of that is our external obliques. And then on top of that is our rectus abdominis that you saw in the first pictures, those six-pack muscles. So they fit right on top here. Okay. When all of these muscles are working together, typically what they do is they will crunch you forward. So that's why abdominal exercises have been something that people have traditionally done, crunches, planks, things that we're trying to get all of those muscles activated together. You can see that these have pulls on one side of the other, and these muscles can operate independently. So you can just turn on your left external oblique. You can just turn on your right internal oblique. So depending on which one of these muscles you turn on, it can laterally bend you, it can rotate you. So you can have these muscles all acting independently, and that's how we're so flexible in our trunk and able to move in all different directions. So that being said, because you're able to have one active and one not active, or you're able to activate them together, we can create muscle imbalances. So you can have that your left external oblique is tight and your right internal oblique is loose. And when we have issues like that, then we don't have the symmetrical patterns. We don't have muscles acting evenly, and that's where we can see different pulls on different parts of the linea alba. So if you currently do have a diastasis, or if you've seen a picture, usually they're not perfectly straight. You can usually see that one side is a little bit wider, or it's a little bit more separated on the left, higher, and that's why, because you have these independent muscles pulling on that linea alba in different ways. So each one of these muscles puts a different force on that tissue. And as we mentioned before, this tissue is flexible, so as I put force on this tissue, I'm stretching it in different directions. So that's part of the explanation of why you may have your diastasis higher, you may have it in the middle, or you may have it lower. It depends on which is the driver, which of these muscles is too active or not active enough to hold tension in that linea alba the way that we want to. So that's just a quick anatomy lesson, and next we're going to move on to intra-abdominal pressure. All right, everyone, back again for the next part of our class. So this is intra-abdominal pressure, and what that means is inside your abdomen. So we talked about before with our anatomy, we talked about how the muscles are pulling on, like, externally, so on the outside they're pulling on that linea alba to change its position. And what we're talking about with this is that pressure from within can push the linea alba in different directions. So as I have my linea alba sitting here with my abdominals, as I breathe, depending on where my pressure goes, it can separate from within with each breath. Okay? So I'm going to show that with this balloon here. There's a fellow physical therapist, Julie Wiebe, who uses this example. I've modified it, but just wanted to let you know. So there, your diaphragm sits at the top, your pelvic floor sits at the bottom. So we're talking about right up here at your brow line again, where your diaphragm is going to work, and then your pelvic floor is down here at the bottom of your pelvis, right by your pubic bone. So as you breathe, your diaphragm moves down as you inhale. As you exhale, your diaphragm moves up. So as your diaphragm moves down on that inhale, it increases the pressure from the top. There's only a finite amount of area for that pressure to go, so it has to go in some direction. It can go down toward the pelvic floor. It can go out toward your linea alba. That's this line here. It can go up to where your diaphragm is, so it can actually create more pressure on your diaphragm as you breathe. It can expand your rib cage. So there's all kinds of different ways that that pressure can go, but it has to go somewhere. So depending on how you breathe, how you stand, and how you move will determine where this pressure goes. What I see most often with someone with a diastasis, and if breathing is an issue, it's that their breathing pattern expands that linea alba and then comes back together. Expands that linea alba, comes back together. So what we're getting is a constant pressure on that linea alba all day long. So it doesn't matter what you're doing for 5-minute exercises. You could do the best exercise in the world for 5 minutes, but if you continue the breathing pattern, that puts pressure on, pressure off, pressure on, pressure off, pressure on, pressure off. It's not going to help, right? Because you're not eliminating the cause of the pressure, or the cause of the force on the linea alba that's separating it. Okay? So that's another reason that I wanted to talk about too, that I said in the beginning those pictures are too simplified of just those muscles separate or they don't. That's not the whole picture, and I hope you're seeing that with the last 2 classes, the anatomy and here. So the final thing I want to say is just that I want to caution you at taking any of the classes that just say they're for diastasis and that they will solve your problem, because as you can see, there are so many different factors that affect your diastasis that I want you to just be a little more discerning or a little more cautious about things like that, because they may not be for you depending on which one of the muscles or breathing, depending on what it is causing the diastasis, those programs might not be right for you. So please just pay attention And if your symptoms are getting worse, stop. That's never good for anybody, okay? So we've done our anatomy, our intra-abdominal pressure, and then next up is how to actually check yourself for a diastasis. Hi everyone, Ann Madden here from Proximity Telehealth. So today we're talking about how to test yourself at home for a diastasis recti or an abdominal separation. So we know that our abdominals typically sit relatively close together, and when people are pregnant or have too much pressure in their stomach, there's a couple different... Hi everyone, it's Ann Madden from Proximity Telehealth. Today we're going over how to test yourself for a diastasis recti at home. What we're testing is for two different things. We're testing for the amount of separation between your abdominals. Anything over 2 fingers is considered a diastasis. The second thing we're looking at is the quality of the tissue that's under your fingers. So is it squishy like a wet sponge, or does it bounce back like a balloon? So that's what we're looking at, is how tight and tense that tissue is underneath your fingers. Okay, so you're gonna lay on your back. You're gonna roll up your shirt. You're gonna find your belly button. You're gonna go 2 inches or so above your belly button. And the very first thing I like to do is just feel around all of your tissues to see what the entire area feels like. Okay, so before we even, I got ahead of myself, before we even feel in that area, just kind of feel around. Get used to feeling what is in that area of your body. That way you're gonna know if there's a change or not. Okay, so we're gonna start 2 inches above. You're gonna take, you can do it 2 different ways. The measurement is this way, but I feel like it's most comfortable to use both of my hands because then I can actually feel if there's an indent. So I go 2 fingers above and then I go back and forth like this because I feel like I get a better feel. So I'm feeling pretty tense under here. I don't feel anything super squishy right now. So then I'm gonna lift my head and my shoulders off the ground and I'm gonna feel for a separation. Okay, I don't feel a separation there in myself. I'm gonna show you with my fingers here as I press down. So you can see that it doesn't go in anywhere. And then as I lift my head up, it really doesn't. I have a tense spot right there. Okay, so then the next spot I'm going to test is down here by my belly button. So I get right in here toward my belly button. And already this tissue feels different to me than up here. This feels much more tense and solid, and I've already got a little bit of a squish in there I'm feeling. Okay, so I go to lift my head, and I can very distinctly feel that my one finger goes in further. I'm gonna see if y'all can see that on the camera. Okay, well actually it's not as bad as I thought, but yep, so there's a significant little squish right there for me. Okay, as I come back down. Another question I get from a lot of people is how do I tell the difference between the squish of tissue and fat that is in the way? Okay, the way you tell the difference is how deep you are in there pushing. Okay, so fat is the top layer of the tissue, and then your muscles are going to be below that. So if you don't feel some sort of tension under your fingers, you're not pushing deep enough. Okay, so you basically just have to push past the fat to get to the muscles. So you'll see this as we go on this lower portion on me. This is where I carry more fat than I do up in this portion of me. So you'll see that I have to go a little bit deeper. So I'm gonna scoot this down. So I have to go deeper under here to get to the tissues I'm looking for. So see how I'm squishing in? Now I feel that this is where the muscles are below here. So you can see if I let go, if I just push like this, then I would be on the fat layer. I have to push deeper to get to that muscle layer. Okay, same thing as I did before. I hold here and then I give myself a head lift, and I'm pretty solid in there too. Okay, let me move this this hand to see if you can tell. See, I'm not really squishing in too much. It's more like that blown up balloon like I was saying. Okay, so that's how you check. It's important for you to know where your separation is. Is it above the belly button? Is it at the belly button? Is it below? This is important information because different muscles and different pressures will cause the upper portion to stay open, the lower portion to stay open, that center portion to stay open. So it's important to know what's happening in your stomach so that we know how to go about rehabbing it and helping you increase the tension in those tissues and have a more healthy stomach. So I hope that that was helpful. I would love for you to go and do this on yourself. Write it down somewhere so that you have a record of the date and what you found, because what we really want to see is that there's an improvement. So fixing a diastasis isn't necessarily that we have complete closure. What we're really looking for is that the tension on the tissues is stronger so that we know that your stomach is handling pressure and forces correctly. So that's why I want you to write down both things. Write down the amount of separation as well as what the tissues felt like. Okay, so go ahead and try that, and I'll talk to you all soon. Hi everyone, I'm Ann Madden, the founder of Proximity Telehealth. Today I'm here to talk to you about an exercise that I have women start in their late stages of pregnancy and then immediately postpartum. So something that I see people making the mistake of is putting too much pressure on their central abdomen as they lie down and get up from a laying position. So if you've seen some of my previous videos, you know that we've talked about that this is the canister, or this is our section of our body that when we're recovering from pregnancy, we're trying to reduce the amount of pressure that's pushing out or pushing down. We're trying to balance that pressure. Something that puts an increased amount of pressure on this central system is that sit-up motion that people do as exercises and then just in your daily activity. But when you're recovering from pregnancy, you want to be really careful about doing that because these structures are healing. They've been stretched for 9 months. They're not at their optimal length. They're this far apart, and now we're asking them to work hard. So we want to give them a break as they start to heal back together. We don't want to give them a big stretch each time we lie down or sit up. So this is called a log roll. Traditionally, I see people learning this after they've had back surgeries, but this really applies to the pregnant population. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to lay to either side, so whichever side your pillow's on, or if you're on the couch, whichever side you want to lay down on, and then you're going to roll to your back, okay? So you lay down on your side, bring your legs up, and then you roll over to your back, okay? And then getting up is just the reverse of that. So you roll yourself to the side. Now here we're going to use my hand and we're going to use the weight of my legs to help me get up, and then also all of these muscles on the side here. So we're going to let those legs swing and use our arms. So as you can see, I put almost zero pressure on that central area that we're trying to get to heal after pregnancy. Also, when you're pregnant, you already have those muscles stretched to their limitation. So if we add further pressure, we're going to add further stretch. So I hope that this is helpful. This is something that you should do each time until you have the strength in your abdomen. This could be 3 to 6 months after pregnancy. It could be even longer depending on how many babies you've had, how stretched they were, how big they were. This is something that you just really should work into your daily routine to help that central area heal. All right, ladies, I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you again next time. So thank you for joining me for the Diastasis Recti class, and what follows next is your discovery session. So this is an online video chat appointment with me. It is a 20-minute session that we will talk about what your birth history is, So thank you for joining me for the Diastasis Recti course. The next step for you is your discovery session. So you will meet with Thank you for joining me for the Diastasis Recti class. So the next step for you is the discovery session. This is where you will meet with one of Proximity's physical therapists online for a video chat appointment. So that's a 20-minute appointment where we will discuss your major issues and challenges that you're facing. This is where we'll get to know each other, online to make sure that this is a good fit for us moving forward. And it's also to just get some of your questions answered so that you know the best path for moving forward. So we look forward to meeting you, and thanks for joining us for the course.